Hello, everybody. It is I, Joe. Wait, that's the... How do we start the show again?
Bald boy. The baldest of boys. The blingiest of baldest heads. Joe.
That's me, the king of foils. I put the lenticular foiling on my head to make it shiny. That's me. Welcome to Man on the Rocks.
That's the one.
It's the one. Joining me today, the guy who doesn't stop winning games no matter what. Even God himself can't stop him, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
We're a mess today, apparently.
You can't prove that.
You can't prove that. Yeah, you can't prove that. Anyway, we're talking to Atlas went to the Command Fest here, and it was really good and super epic. And Atlas has some wild games, almost as wild as these upcoming events in the area. Atlas, what's on the horizon?
Horizon for us, we have a couple of things coming up. It's mostly has to do with the PDX Regional Championship circuit. There's this weekend Cowtown Throwdown. I'll be there, maybe if you listen. And from wherever you're at, you're going to be there. We can connect and say hi and chat about our decks and things. That'll be fun. So Cowtown Throwdown, that's in Ohio. That's not local. Moving on. We have a couple of events coming up that for local stuff. There's Fishbowl 4 is in California, which is on the West Coast, at least a little more local. And then Card Haven is a card shop in Bellingham. That's going to be on July 28th, which is a Sunday. A little weird date, but whatever. It's part of the, like I said, PDX Regional Championships qualifiers. That's in Bellingham, Washington at Card Haven. I'm planning on going to that. Several of us are planning on going to that. So maybe we'll catch you there for that one. And then I believe the next one after that, this is a ways out, but I'll throw it out there anyway since I can't really think of anything else coming up soon. The Regional Championships itself is going to be on September 14th and 15th. So that's coming up in about 2 or 3 months here, looking out towards that. There's also going to be one more event in Bellingham at Aegis Games as a qualifier event for that circuit. Date hasn't been announced yet, but as soon as we get it, we will let you know.
As always, I'll have everything that we talk about show event-wise in the doobly-doo in the show notes. So if y'all are interested in these events, going to be going to these events, wanna meet up and link up and all that jazz, be there for your convenience. All right. Well, speaking of convenient, it's super convenient for me to thank our lucky patron this week, Max. Appreciate you, my man. You should come on down and get a drink with us. How was the Command Fest tournament?
It was fun. It was a really good time. Everyone had a blast. It seemed like so. There were some new players, a bunch of veteran players. It was a really good mix and a really fresh environment, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of following the standings last night. It seemed like everyone that I figured that would be up at the top was up at the top.
Yeah. It was. I mean, I feel like a lot of these things, it's always like the same, like 20, 25, maybe 30 people who are always like in contention for the top whatever.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty predictable in that regard, but it was nice. There were some new faces. There were several new faces who like made the top cut who I had not met before. So that was really interesting. I apparently there were like a couple of YouTubers who showed up, which was kind of cool.
Whoa, YouTubers! That's crazy.
Just like like
never be associated with YouTubers.
Personality people.
Yeah.
Like apparently there was somebody who, what was it? Let's see here. Top 16. Yeah, there was someone named Brett Mazziora was was like, apparently they have a YouTube channel and they do a lot of like gameplay or whatever. So that was cool. Then we saw a lot of like the usual faces who showed up, came out playing. Some of them were playing their like signature decks. Some of them were playing some newer like a couple people on the Bird. An Elsha deck made top 16. There was a Jets of Mars that made top 16. Krakashima made top 16 and then top 4, which was really cool. Nice little like fresh take, little bit of a break from the standard like 4 or 5 color piles. So that was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was there a flock of the Bird out there?
Not as many as one would have thought in like an 86-person tournament, but it was there were 4 of them, I think, that I recall seeing at least.
Okay.
There was it was 4 people on the Bird, 3 birds in top 16, one in top 4. So that was something at least. It wasn't like just an absolute like mass of them, but yeah, it was neat.
Decent conversion though. If 3 made it into top 16, then 1 made it all the way to top 4.
Yeah, I mean that card is just really like absurdly powerful. So has something to do with it. Plus, the people playing it were also just like really competent, skilled pilots. So that also helps.
Yeah, how is like the first like 2-ish weeks of the bird being out?
I think it's a disaster. I think the fact that it's like the conversion rate on this card is absurd. Like, yeah, there are a lot of people who don't like build around it or whatnot, but I think, and maybe like it doesn't necessarily win every single event or whatever, but I feel like there's 2 reasons that the bird doesn't just overpower a table, and I think it has to do with either they get unlucky in that their mulligans are terrible, like they just never draw what they need, never flip what they want, or someone else just has the nuts and they get blown out of the water before they can do anything. I think that's one aspect to it. That's 2 sides of the same coin, so I'm counting it as one. The other one is like the table just focuses it down, and like nobody's allowed to advance their own game plan, or like almost even worse, everyone just ignores everyone else's game plan except to stop the bird. And then the naughty players are all whining. They're like, "Oh my gosh, so and so's about to add Nas, or like do this to win the game or whatever." And it's like, yeah, but if we don't check your strategy because it's so passively overvaluing the rest of the table, like if we don't do something about that, you will just win. And there's by the point, even if the game doesn't end, by the point where we get around to you, like the point where you're like demonstrating like your Shugo loops or whatever, like by the time we get to that, like it will just be too late. There will be literally nothing we can do to stop you. And so you just have to take all this like preemptive action and like strike them like ahead of time, like just nuke their dorks off the board with the bowmasters, even if like there's an S% you'd rather shoot or something, or like making sure that you counter like just random artifact tutors because you can't afford to let them get a hold of Shuko or whatever. And it sounds like really absurd, like you're dedicating all this hate to the deck, right? But the problem is that if you don't, they just win. And there's really nothing you can do about it.
Honestly, like the handful of times I played it, it's felt very one-sided. Like either we all have to stop the bird and then someone else wins, or exactly like you said, they land their 1 value engine, they get their 1 turn cycle where they're not, facing down the barrel of a gun, and they just run away with the game, or they just win on the spot.
My actual nightmare is somebody else resolving like a Mystic or more or Rhystic Study or whatever, and then the naughty player trying to win, because I don't even have the time to like consider paying for your Rhystic Study and being responsible, because every single like little bit of card advantage that I have, all the mana that I have is going to be spent having to stop the bird from trying to get like 3 card draws, because if they get 3 card draws, they get 9 card draws. If they get 9 card draws, they're getting like 27 card draws, and the game is just over at that point.
And like the cards that they aren't drawing are lands that are going to the battlefield untapped,
which is just so absurd.
After like spending some time with like Modern Horizons 3 and like seeing the cards and seeing how it affects and seeing the conversation, I largely think that it's a good set, except for Nadu, but I feel like Nadu just flies in the face of literally every single design principle I think Magic has seen so far. I don't think it's the One Ring bad, because like it's pretty much locked up to the command zone slot. You're not going to see Nadu in nearly every single deck. I think the decks that can slot Nadu into the 99 are like almost exclusively to Revi. It's really about it. I feel like that's the only deck that can make good use of the bird. And in that deck, it's just as oppressive. It's just as insane, because it's not once per turn. It's once per instance of the bird, which doubles out to twice per creature. Which like separating like the raw like game mechanic of like what Nadu does, like just tracking the bird is just a nightmare card. It's so, and like this, I'm speaking from someone who plays a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, where like tracking your random effects that happen in the graveyard or because like something happened prior in the turn is like pretty second nature once you get used to it. It's an absurd thing to try and keep track of, even for someone who's like used to that style of gameplay. Like if you're not on top of it and your pilot, your opponent isn't like as skilled with like keeping track of their stuff, they don't have like a good system down, they're not like adept really, it just becomes it's such a headache just to keep that all together.
and it takes such a long time to resolve storm turns, wherein, like you said, your opponent isn't super competent and efficient at resolving their triggers, which means that by the time you get done with this non-deterministic 30-minute turn, wherein your opponent's interacted 97 times with this bird player, and the bird player also interacted like 96 times, but they somehow didn't win, and then you pass, and the Ristic Study player is like, interesting. Now that I'm also holding my entire library in my hand, let me see if I can try to win.
And you're stuck there holding the bag on, oh, where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
How did I get here?
Sorry for trying to not lose the game to you, Nadu player. I guess that's on me for trying to not lose the game.
How dare you?
Player.
How dare you try to not lose the game?
Honestly, yeah, that's on me.
What do you think this is? Huh? Who do you think you are? Trying to not lose the game. And CDH, unheard of. I thought we were supposed to jam as many value engines on the table as possible, and then whoever remains sits on top of the throne.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but yeah, it was overall it was a good day, and the bird players, the 4 of them that I saw, were efficient at resolving their triggers, and they didn't take like 97 million minute turns, like trying to resolve a non-deterministic storm or whatever. They were concise and efficient at doing that as much as possible, and so that was really nice. Shout out to my boy Steven. He brought an Agila list that we had been working on. He played it like 4 times over the entirety of ever. And it was like an Agila tempo list, closer to like a lot of the old builds where it was on like some like more stacksy stuff, and then you just went with the Agila combo, no breach, no oracle, nothing like that. And so we've been working on that for a little bit, and he took it and just absolutely crushed his matches. He
let's go
top 16 easily, and ended up 7th overall. So even though he didn't make top 4, he tore it up, and it was really awesome. Really excited to see. And then also to Zach, my friend Zach, his first ever top 16, and then also his first ever top 4. He was playing Nadu, of course, but he did make top 4 with me, and absolutely just like wrecked people. We were doing the math, and he played an entire 120 minutes of Magic for the duration of the day.
Wow, that's efficient. That's efficient.
That's what I'm saying. So 5 rounds of Swiss, semis, and finals. He played a total of 2 hours. And these are 80-minute rounds. Like that's over an hour per round. And he played 2 hours total throughout the course of the day, Swiss, semis, and finals. Just because he was just like being so efficient with his storm turns and everything. Absolutely just like wrecked his tables. He ended up drawing several of his matches, but that's fine because the ones that he did end up playing, ended up winning 2, drawing 3, so he went through and undefeated throughout the day. But the 2 matches that he did play, he killed the table on like turn 3 both times, and it like wasn't even close. And then 2 of his games he ID'd, I believe. One of them was a forced draw, wherein one of his opponents wanted to draw. The table decided they didn't want to draw, so they started playing the game, and this player was playing Anya, and they realized they weren't going to win the game, couldn't win the game, so they entombed their World Gorger Dragon on turn 1, and turn 2 placed an Animate down on the stack with no interaction, and executed a World Gorger combo loop with no other creatures in any graveyards. So there were no legal targets for the Animate dead to go to, and the game just action kept
cycling World Gorger Dragon.
Cycles indefinitely, which the current ruling on that is the game is just ended in a draw. Because no player is allowed to take a legal game action. So it was uninterruptible. And so he got forced into a draw on turn 2, which is unfortunate because he told me that he had the nuts again and was about to win on turn 3. So that was a really funny funny turn of events.
Oh hell yeah, no, that's massive for him. Dude has been like, I'm gonna shit talk the bird forever. But that dude has been grinding the bird ever since it got spoiled. Like immediately, like the weekend it got spoiled, we were in the kitchen, or you guys were in the kitchen rather, cooking it up, and then I was kind of on the receiving end of a lot of that, and even like the early iterations when we were kind of working through a lot of the rough stuff. The deck's just nasty, just absolutely schnasty.
Yeah, he was on fire, and so shout out to him as well for just doing an awesome job on Saturday.
Heck yeah! Now I wish I could have gone. Life has just been super duper busy, so I just haven't been able to go to many tournaments or events really. But it is what it is. It is what it is. So, how did your tournament experience go?
Mine was very good. I got to play with a bunch of just a bunch of opponents who were super skilled. I also played with several people who were newer to the game. There were a number of people there who had said they'd been playing CH for a long time, but this is their first tournament experience, so that was really exciting to be able to sort of like foster that environment and be like, hey, this is a great, like, we're happy that you're here, you're a good player, like, come back, because those players were also quite skilled at the game. And then there were a couple of other players who said they don't play a ton, like, in like the tournament environment, but of course they play a lot, and they had played before, and they were thinking about trying to get more involved, and so they were coming out to test it out and see how they felt about it. And they did really well as well. I would say, like, my first pod had several players who, 2 players said it was their first event, and so they were like really open to learning. That was a lot of fun. Like sort of like coaching them through as we went, and it's like, all right, so like these are the theories behind these decks. Like this deck's trying to do this deck's trying to do that. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm. The only knock I can have against the day overall was that the event was a no proxy event, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah,
that does prevent people from playing like super optimal strategies if their budget doesn't quite allow for it, which is unfortunate. But aside from that, it was great.
Heck yeah. So, what did you? I was about to ask, what did you bring? We all know you brought Cheshire. You brought Kenny. To the surprise of literally no one. If you didn't know, that's just kind of like your thing. Just a deck bring. How did Kenny feel?
He felt really good. I was able to implement a couple of like playstyle changes I've been practicing over the past weekend, as well as this one. I've been practicing keeping a little bit more like aggressive openers. If I'm not absolutely positive that I need to like keep a hand full of control magic, like trying to play a little bit more proactively, even though I am a control list, just in order to like generate the advantage and get where I need to be, which is something that I hadn't necessarily been doing for the past like couple weeks. And so I've been working on that, and I did that a lot the previous week at the CDH tournament, CDH 6. And then this weekend I also was like working on that, so I kept a lot of hands on like early draw engine with like maybe one piece of interaction, as opposed to like something that I would keep more typically, which is like maybe a tutor for either a draw engine or a stacks piece, and then like just a grip of like counter spells and removal and things like that. And that seemed to work out pretty well. I was able to score wins. I didn't take any of my games to time, so for those of you who may have played for me, or like, my rep is I go to time a lot, but yeah, so that was a step for me. Is I finished, I think, 20 or 30 minutes early on all of my games, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
I think part of that was also just the nature of the meta the meta shift in general, not just specific to no proxy events, but the meta shifting a little bit more aggressively, which means opponents are just inherently scaling down on their interaction packages, meaning that when I try and do something, it is much more likely that I get away with it, because my plays don't typically tend to be game-winning plays, like until I have the backup and the protection necessarily to force it through. I just like to accrue a lot of value, and decks that are much more proactive and don't play a lot of interaction don't typically have the resources to waste a counter spell, or like one of their like 6 counter spells, or one of their 2 removal spells on a value play. Even if it is insanely strong, they don't have the resources, don't have the cards to say, no, you can't do that, if it's not directly winning the game right now. Like, they don't have to answer it. They'd much rather save it to like try and defend their win attempt or something. And so
or like go after the actual win attempt that's happening.
Yeah, and so I was able to get away with a lot of like early fishes that just stuck around and drew a lot of cards, tutoring up and resolving heuristic studies into like blue light pods, and they're like, oh, I want to red blast this, but I'm also not going to, because if I do that, then I can't like counterspell with the counterspell that comes after my win attempt, and things like that. And so,
oh man, I'll counterspell a heuristic study any day of the week, easy.
And so that was able to resolve a couple one rings into blue heavy pods, because it's not a heuristic study, so people are less concerned about it, things like that. And so it's just kind of like a lot of those style of effects were just kind of running through, and then I was able to sit there and just like passively accrue control magic, and until and stop my opponents until I felt that I was in a comfortable spot to sort of like just jam a win and force it through with protection or whatever. So
yeah, so like, because we had talked about like you wanting to like shift your I guess mildly timid playstyle to something a bit more proactive. What really was like the catalyst for that?
I just think that with the current way that the meta is going right now, it makes it a lot more difficult to answer. Like we've talked a lot before about how like it's challenging to like go 1-for-1 with your opponents in a 1v3 format, and so even if the 1v1 does or the 1v3 does shift, right? And so that is challenging when people. It is very challenging when people are jamming an attempt and then they pass the turn. Someone else jams an attempt. Someone else passes the turn. They jam an attempt. And maybe there's one extra counterspell that wasn't used floating around out there, but it's not yours. And so your opponent, you go for something, and then your other opponent answers you, and then the next opponent gets to go. And now you're actually all spent.
Yeah.
And so I think that more passive, timid playstyles are really rewarded in a more control and mid-range centered meta, but right now the meta is it's still like focused on mid-range, which is good. That's a healthy spot. Mid of the range is where any format, any card game should aim to be. But with that right now, it is slanted a little bit more aggressive, a little more fast, and so play styles that they try and have some way to seize upon a win attempt whenever it presents itself is really rewarded. And so I've been trying to like set myself up into positions where like you force out an early like value play that's going to resolve because it's not a win attempt before everyone has extra like resources to throw around and sort of like start shutting other players out of the game. And that's been pretty successful so far.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel almost similarly where I think, you know, Turbo Summer is the funny thing that we've been joking about kind of internally, but it definitely does feel that way. It feels like if you're sitting around and waiting, you're going to be missing your opportunity just simply because if you're always on the back foot, you're never able to strike well, or you're just not set up in a way to like capitalize on someone else like setting up, that early fish, that early Ristic, that early draw engine that like will kind of passively gain you card advantage. Is I think what a lot of decks are aiming to do right now is land that Esper Sentinel, land that fish, land that, like almost engine requirement kind of card that'll really carry you to victory. Baby Pod's felt I haven't been doing super great, but like that's mainly just because my playstyles and mulligans have been buns. But it feels pretty decent because I can just like establish these value engines, and like it feels pretty easy to hide behind a Grand Abolisher, especially when half the deck is creature tutors that put things onto the battlefield. And I have such a wide reach of like things to get that I don't even need to use. You don't even need to hide behind stuff like that. So I can definitely understand like the shift away from control, because I always felt like control was like the easiest thing for a deck like that to kind of navigate through, because if I'm only worrying about counter spells, well, counter spells are easy. The main thing I'm more worried about these days is like I feel like a lot more creature interaction's been on the rise. I feel like a lot of people have been playing to the board and answering the board a lot more. At least on my front, but that just might be because my presence in the pod requires that, and I just see more of that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty relatively well balanced between the two right now. Like, fighting on the stack is just as important as it's always been in my opinion.
It's never going to go away.
Yeah, and then I think that there's not enough removal going around right now, but I think with the existence of Nadu and other commander-centric decks that are on the rise, I think we will see an uptick in that. I think people were talking about cutting Draenith Magistrates from their decks for the past couple of months.
That feels incorrect. I feel like
with Nadu running around and all this stuff, like Breach, more commander decks like Cedh and Kin and things like that. I think we will start to see people putting Draenith Magistrate back into their decks, because no matter what anyone says, Draenith is a good card at any point in the game. Because even if someone's already resolved their commander, if you resolve a Draenith Magistrate and then kill their commander is now locked out of the game, just like it would have been if they hadn't yet casted it. So
yeah, no, it means you can gain value out of the removal spell, where at a point where the removal spell might have just been rotting away in your hand.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna kill this, but like they're just gonna recast it on their turn, and it's not even gonna matter. Plus, it hates on things like Breach, Cast from Exile, Cast from Library, Graveyard, things like that.
We're casting from Library? Are we casting Palaka Worm?
No, but Elsha, like things like that.
Oh, okay,
right?
true.
So, like there are cards that are doing that. Things like Eladamri Corvic Thal, are casting from Library. So
True. Yeah, the new Eldar, I kind of forgot about that card. Yeah.
Yeah, so those cards do matter. I think like Drannith was super duper relevant in my semifinals game. I would not have won that game if it were not for Drannith Magistrate that I drew on like turn 9 and cast on turn 10.
Oh god, super late game Drannith.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like I would have lost that game, and 2 of my opponents would have lost that game, 100% guaranteed. The reason we didn't was because I was able to sequence a removal spell, Swords to Plowshares, on an Aranis. I don't know what the actual commander is called, but it's Aranis Street Urchin deck, and basically the commander is a 1-mana removal spell for any creature. But we were able to sequence it so that the Swords goes off on the Aranis at end step, then it goes to my turn. I throw it on a Drannith Magistrate, and the Aranis was locked behind it. So even though we couldn't get rid of the Street Urchin effect, they could not put their creature commander back in place. They couldn't start just deleting our boards at will again. That deck piloted by my friend Aaron Johnson, wanted to give a huge shout out to them. They played super excellently all day that day on a niche deck that can struggle a lot against faster lists, but they've been putting up super impressive results in the past couple tournaments they played at. So
that's awesome. Yeah, big shout out to them. That's killer. I love the Street Urchin decks. They're so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's also just really strong into the current meta because, like I was saying, people don't play enough removal, and people are playing more creatures than ever. So just being able to say, okay, crack a treasure, sack a treasure, delete your guy that you just spent 4 or 5 mana on is really strong.
Functionally free removal is always going to be good in my book. I don't know. I'm always going to be a fan of more removal in most circumstances.
Absolutely.
So you kind of alluded to it. You made it to semis. How was Swiss?
Swiss was really fun. There's 5 rounds. Won the first game off of a super well placed discard Eternal Witness to hand size on turn 2 because of a turn 1 fish. My opener was just actually fucked up. It was a
fucked up opener, man.
It really was. I don't know how else to put it. It was 2 lands, a Mox Diamond, a Mystic Remora, what is it? A Saw in Half, and Eternal Witness. So I'm already like just about there, right?
What the fuck? That is a fucked up hand.
Yeah, and then also a Mana Drain was sitting there as well. So I was just ready, right? It was just to make sure I didn't get my cards messed up. It was land, diamond, that's 3, fish 4, witness 5, Saw 6, and Mana Drain 7, right? So like, yeah,
Jesus.
it was a really good opener, and I was in second seat. So I dropped the fish with 1 mana on 1, pass, and the first seat was Yuriko, me, Itali, and then 4th seat is Timur Krark. So Thrasios and Krark.
Okay.
And basically Itali goes, well, gotta get my commander out. That's my game plan. Land, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Fellwar Stone. And so I drew 3 cards, and the card player goes, well, if you're not respecting the fish, I'm certainly not. And they cast a Chrome.
Oh my
so
god.
So that was 4. And then the Yuriko player draws, and they say, well, if you guys aren't going to respect it, like, I don't know why I should push myself farther behind. So I'll play the second land. I'll play the Soul Ring. I'll play this Curse Totem, because at least that like stacks the table a little bit.
It's something.
But it's 2 more cards, so I've seen 6 cards now off of this 1 mana that I just paid. It's literally double Ancestor Recall for 1 mana, and then they played like another Donger or something, and then they passed to me. I of course pay for the fish because I now can hit the next. Of course, why not? I can now hit my next 2 land drops easily. Discarded the Witness to hand size, but at this point, I just about see my victory condition because I've drawn Necromancy. So I know that I can get my Witness back at any time. I pass the turn with fish, more rotations go around. Basically, the Italy player finally casts their commander on turn 3. They flip 3 creature spells, I think. Like, nothing that super matters, and then my survival of the fittest. But it triggers my fish, and I draw Chord of Calling.
Oh, God.
So they ate my survival, but gave me a Chord. And so that's a trade I'm okay
We're up.
We really were. In most situations. I also have, like, I have a Dork in play now, even though there's a Cursed Tome, I still played it out. Just in case it ever left or whatever. It's useful for later, just sacking things. It can block the Phyrexian Walker or whatever from Yuriko. I have a Forbidden Orchard to give people blockers for Yuriko. So we're just like in a super commanding control position. I've been removing Krark's doublers like periodically, so they can't actually get their Krark to do anything. They keep having to like tap out to like cast their Guy of Soul Partition, or like it gets bounced and they have to tap out to cast that again. Goes around.
Time walk them.
Yeah, repeatedly. Finally, I sacked the fish on 4.
It had done its
job. So I get the 7, and at that point, I kept a hand of Mana Drain. I think I had 1 extra land, Chord, Necromancy, Saw in half, and then a Psych Rift and 1 other card I think that just didn't matter at the time. But basically, pass. Italy goes and casts their Guy. They flip some actually pretty good spells this time, and then at which point the Krark player Mindbreak traps them. That's what it was. They flipped an Amphibian Storm off of my library. Decide to cast it and sweep the board. So they cast it. The Krark player Mindbreak traps them with a doubler in play, so they get it back.
Of course.
Goes to their turn. Pass untapped, and then I Chord of Calling for a Dockside at the end of their turn. They talk to the Yuriko player. They're like, I think this is probably worth countering. It's gonna get a Dockside. I was like, yes, it's gonna get a Dockside because like the count is 8, and I feel like I'm a little behind on mana with this Cursed Tome in play. And since like my creature ramp isn't working, and y'all have like rocks in play, and I just have this Mox Knight. So you all have significantly more mana than me. They chat for a little bit, and basically the Krark player goes, I'm thinking about countering this. What do you think? And the Yuriko player says, I'll be honest with you, if they get a Dockside, I'm getting a Dockside. And so the Krark player, I don't know why they phrased it like this, but the Krark player said, oh, so you want this to resolve? And they were like, well, I mean, I don't know. But the Krark player got scared that the Yuriko player was going to fight them on the stack over me resolving my thing so that they could copy the Dockside.
What the fuck?
So the Krark player passes on my Chord. The Yuriko player starts tanking on countering my Chord now because they didn't expect it to get to them. They thought that the Krark player was going to counter it. And I was like, look, I don't know if you should counter this. It takes me off a lot of mana. Like, I get a lot of mana, sure, and that's scary, but you said already you're going to get a Dockside, which is good for you. And it also takes me off a lot of mana to stop the Krark player, which we will need a lot of mana to stop the Krark player since they have a doubler already on the battlefield with their Krark. All they need is a cantrip and they can start popping off.
Mm-hmm.
Politics a little bit. The Yuriko player was newer to the game, but they ended up showing me their hand, like the counter spell they were going to use to counter me. But the way they did it, like, showed me their entire hand. And it was offer, force, Mindbreak Trap with no other blue cards. And they were going to offer my thing, which takes them on exile Mindbreak Trap to Force of Will to counter any other relevant spells.
Oh, no!
I was able to talk them into, you don't want to cast the offer because you don't have a pitch card for your force other than the trap, which is, like, that's a terrible pitch card if you have any way to keep that. So they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they let my Chord resolve. I got my Dockside trigger, turn goes around. The Yuriko player, Demonic Tutors, casts Sakashima's Student, or ninjutsus in Sakashima's Student at end step. For whatever reason, the way they'd sequenced it, they'd cast like one more spell before it this turn or something. I don't know. At any rate, they make infinite treasures in combat with their Sakashima Student and a ninjutsu guy, right?
Sure.
And then they're like, okay, I'll demonstrate infinity treasures. I'd like to activate Sakashima's Student, putting it into play. And that's when I was like, okay, at this point I want to interact. And I baby rifted the Italy because that was their onboard outlet to kill us, right?
Yeah.
Exile everyone's library past the turn. Then at that point they try and offer me. I mana drain the offer. They know that they can't cast a third spell and keep fighting me because the Mindbreak Trap from Krark is live. And so they get scared that they're gonna lose all their interaction on the stack, right? And so they stop fighting. The Atali gets bounced. They go to second main and they try and outlet using a spell. Instead of just keeping the fight on the stack, they cast Spectral Sailor to try and outlet into their, like, drawing their library.
Okay, but that still accomplishes the same issue that they were trying to avoid.
Yeah, so they get Mind Break trapped, but they have infinite mana. So it goes Mind Break trap, Krark triggers. In response to the Krark triggers, hard cast Force of Will. In response, Mana Drain, Krark triggers. In response to the Krark triggers, hard cast Mind Break trap. In response to the Mind Break trap, Fierce Guardianship, Krark triggers. And they were like, yeah, that's all I got. They had like one card in their hand, and they're like, yeah, this does nothing. Yeah, good to resolve your Krark triggers. And I was like, well, you have priority, but you have to pass it. In response to the Krark triggers, I would like to saw and have my Dockside Extortionist. And everyone went, oh no. Because they have infinity treasures, right? And so, and I was like, saw and half, good to resolve? And they're all like, yeah. I was like, okay, 2 Dockside triggers on the stack. And the Krark player looked at the Eureka player, and they're like, please crack your treasures. You have infinity treasures. They will have 2 times infinity treasures. Please crack them. And the Eureka player goes, oh yeah, I guess I have to. Man, this stinks. And so they crack all their treasures onto 1. I get 2 Dockside triggers at 8, make 19, or at 9, make 18 treasures. And then I go, okay, cool. And they're like, okay, cool, good to resolve the Fierce Guardianship. And I was like, no, I have another response. Necromancy, reanimate my Eternal Witness, pick up my Saw in half. And they were like, okay. And I was like, cool, Saw in half the Eternal Witness, put everything into the graveyard, pick up the Necromancy and the Saw in half on the 2 Eternal Witness triggers. And they're like, oh no, I see where this is going. So I was able to demonstrate infinite mana at instant speed. And then I picked up the Chord of Calling with one of the triggers, as well as the Saw in half with the last 2 Ewit triggers. Saw, so I can, if anything weird happens, I can go again. And then the Chord is my outlet, so I go Chord for like 6 or 7 or whatever. And I put a Mayhem Devil into play, and I crack treasures to kill the table. So that was really fun.
Hell.
That was a great game. It was a lot of fun. It was a great table to play with.
Golly.
Yeah.
That story had everything you were looking for. You went on the whole hero's journey with that one.
I really did. Like I told you, that hand was messed up. My opener. And that was just kind of like, I was just running hot all day, because that's sort of like how a lot of my hands went. Is game 2 we ID'd, game 3 we played, and it was something pretty similar. Like we played the game. It went. What was game 3? It was me. I don't remember who I was facing in round 3 actually. Who was it? Oh no, that's right. It was me, Kinnan first seat. Second seat is Rogsai, then me, then Blue Farm. Our good friend Bailey was 4th seat Blue Farm. And so Kinnan goes turn 1. Land Soaring Grim Monolith. And we're like, oh, that's not good. Rogsai had mulled like 4 and does
classic.
They go Rogsai, Paradise Mantle, equip, pass. And then I was like land. I had Gemstone Cavern start, land on 2, pass. And then the Bailey plays a land, I think, and passes. Maybe plays a Mox Diamond as well. Kinnan goes second land, Trophy Mage, go get a 3-cost artifact, find 3 ball, cast 3 ball on 2 from first seat. And everyone's just like groaning.
That's awful.
Yeah, that's what yes. But luckily I have Eldari's Call in my hand, so I was able to e-call in response to the 3 ball, find Dockside, so I can get a 3rd mana source. At least I'll be able to start playing the game. Well, funny story, don't hit a 3rd mana source forever. It takes until like, I don't know, it was like a slog. The Kinnan player was down to 3 cards. The Rogsai player was hit like a City of Traders with their 2nd land drop and was able to resolve a Rhystic Study, which we just start feeding in desperate attempts that they can find a way to dig us out, which is rare, like when Rogsai's the good guy, right? But
yeah, how often does that happen?
Right? Bailey hits an Ancient Tomb, casts their own Rhystic Study. Now we're feeding 2 Rhystic Studies. They're feeding each other. Kinnan's feeding them. Kinnan drops a Wandering Archaic and a Spell Skite, and they're Kinnan. And they're like flipping and doing all the shenanigans. Anyways, 19 turns later, whatever it happened to be, I finally drew my 3rd land. And I went, okay, land drop. tap 3, cast Dockside. Fortuitously, everyone ever has 0 mana available, or if they do have mana, it's less than 3, right? So everyone's locked under this 3 ball. I go Dockside. They go, okay. I say Dockside trigger, make 10. They're like, okay. Pay 3, Cloud Shift the Dockside, make 10. And then, yeah, it was just off. I just had a really wild hand. It was like Cloud Shift the Dockside, Clone the Dockside, Demonic Tutor, Displacer Kitten, cast another Flicker spell, or I guess it was Chord of Calling in, Displacer Kitten, cast Demonic Tutor, Flicker the Dockside, make 10 more, go get Eternal Witness, cast the Witness, and then pick up the Cloud Shift from the graveyard to Cloud Shift combo, paying for every single Ristic Study. And I was able to pay for the Wandering Archaic on the Chord and every spell that mattered, but Cloud Shift never has to get paid for because they didn't have anything that mattered on the battlefield.
You can just get that one for free if you have nothing.
They could get all their 3-cost artifacts in their hand. That's really cool.
Oh, hey, that's pretty cool.
But they only had 1 mana, so they couldn't cast any of them, even if they had Flash. So.
Well, that seems like an issue.
Yeah, but anyways.
Maybe you should run 3-ball.
Maybe I should run 3-ball?
Maybe.
That sounds awful. I hate that card. But yeah. And then game 4 was an ID, I believe. I believe I ID'd game 4. Yeah. And then game 5, we played because I had 2 players in my pod who were like, oh, we have to play for it. We're on the bubble we're on the very edge of the bubble if we draw. So they don't want to ID the last round. I was like, okay, that's fair. The naughty player said, well, I want to ID because they're matched up against Aaron's Street Urchin, which is a terrible matchup for a commander-centric creature deck, turns out.
What do you mean? The free removal deck is good against the creature deck? What do you mean?
Yeah, the free removal stacks deck is good against this like manual storm list. Who would have thunk? Anyways, game gets hella toxic with a turn 1 Vexing Bauble, and then Aaron's Street Urchin, and then Aaron's gets Dockside and all this stuff. Like it's just absolutely crazy. Fortunately, I kept a hand that cast like turn 2 One Ring, so I was just able to like cast that and start grinding. The other deck at the table was Aaron's, me, Nadu, and I guess first seat was Nadu, then me, then Luris Jensen, and then Aaron's Street Urchin. But it was like Vexing Bauble locks everything down on free casts, and then just dropping stacks and more removal and all this stuff. And Nadu finally was able to resolve their commander. They resolved a Shuko, and I think they even resolved a Scoot Swarm, but they were tapped out, and they whiffed all 4 of their triggers on the Nadu, flipped 0 lands, got no more guys, had to pass the turn. Once again, everyone's tapped out. There's a Vexing Bauble in play.
Oh,
and
no.
I go to my turn.
Oh, no.
Well, you did cast and then sacrifice your Dockside Extortionist. And I did just draw this Reanimate off the One Ring. Reanimate the Dockside Extortionist, trigger, make like 7 or whatever. Phyrexian Metamorph makes 7 more. And then I was able to like Neoform, or I Eldritch Evolutioned the Aranis player's Dockside into Displacer Kitten, and then I cast a Slaughter Pact to flicker on the Dockside, to flicker, which is for Phyrexian Metamorph, to flicker it to make it a copy of Nadu, and then my pact gets countered because of the bauble, and then I was able to I think I either already had it in hand or I tutored it up. I had enough mana. I went Eternal Witness, pick up this Slaughter Pact, cast Slaughter Pact, targeting Eternal Witness, Nadu trigger, Displacer Kitten trigger, flicker the Witness, and so I was able to go ahead, and then I did a Nadu trigger, flip the top card, and then I picked up a Mana Crypt from my graveyard. The Slaughter Pact got countered by the Bauble trigger, and I went cast Mana Crypt,
flicker the Kitten,
flicker the Eternal Witness, Nadu trigger, because it resets the Witness every time, so the Nadu triggers keep getting reset.
Busted.
Gets countered by the Bauble, so it becomes a 0-cost instant. So it keeps going to the graveyard and picking up my Slaughter Pact, and I was able to demonstrate infinite Nadu triggers to flip my library into my hand and my lands onto the battlefield. And then the players, the 2 players were like, ID? And they're like ID? And I was like, I mean, I guess.
Aw.
Yeah. So and fortunately, they're like, if we lose this, there's no shot we make the top 16 cut. but if we ID, there is still technically a chance we bubble in. So we ID'd, and then both of those players ended up bubbling in the top 16, and they weren't even. They were 14 and 15. They weren't even the last 11 pointer. So that was pretty cool. They both got in and played their games and did super well from what I heard.
Oh heck yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. It's always, as someone who lives on the bubble, it's always a worrying thing when you're on the bubble and you're going into your winning end. And you're
Absolutely.
Like, this draw could theoretically get me there, but who knows?
Yeah, it's super. As someone who's frequently on the bubble myself, it's like one of those things where you're like, oh man, I really need to win this game, but also like maybe I just draw, because like if I lose this game, I know for a fact I don't get there.
Oh yeah. Okay, so walk us through finals then. Or I guess Top Cut rather.
Yeah, so Top Cut was Brett was playing Elsha, me in second. Third place was Kyle on Stella Lee, and then last place was Aaron on Aaron's Street Urchin, which was really cool to see them again. Happy that they made the Top Cut. Basically, we started out with turn 1, seat 1 fish, and then they passed to me. I had another gemstone start, I think, actually. Land, looked at the other two players and said, look, I can feed this fish like 3 times right now, but as long as we fish packed, I will not feed it any cards. And they were like, I don't know, like I kind of want to, and we did some talking, and finally everyone's like, yeah, we can wait at least 1 turn. Maybe they missed their land drop, maybe it was like a lucky hope. We'll see what happens. And so everyone plays their land and passes, get to the next turn, pay for fish, play another land, pass, gets to me, and I was like, look guys, I have 1 more land to play, and I'm gonna play this land, and I won't feed the fish if we don't feed it for another turn. And I was like, okay, sounds good. So we all play our next land drop, don't feed the fish, passes around, pay for fish, play another land, gets to me. I missed my 4th land drop, which felt really bad, and I was like, look guys, I think I have to feed this fish at least one card here, right? But if I do this, it develops a stacks piece that can hurt the Elsha player as well. And they're all like, okay, this seems fine. We'll all consider feeding the fish here, but as little as possible. But it's like turn 3 and we're gonna fall like far behind. I'm also starting to get concerned at this point because Aaron has played turn 1 land, turn 2 land, which was Ancient Tomb, and a mana dork. So like they have the most mana on the battlefield right now.
Oh yeah, they're zooming.
Yeah, they're like really far ahead as far as mana development. From 4th seat, right? And I was like, oh, this is not good. So, but I was able to I went Mana Vault Talion, Talion on 1 or 2. I think I Talioned on 2. Pass, Stella went, land drop, pass. Land drop Commander. They played their Stella on curve, or 1 after curve or something.
Something like that, yeah.
I drew a card. I drew another card off of Aaron on their turn. They played like another thing or 2. And then it goes around. Fish is still there. I hit my 4th land drop and pass. And then the Stella player, like, they're about to go to their turn, and then we're talking a little bit, and everyone's like, okay, Stella player passes. End step, Aaron besieges the Mystic Remora, and then goes to their turn, at which point they go Vexing Bauble, Chalice on 1, Street Urchin, and wow. Just like, yeah. And everyone's like, oh, that's not good. Because now any free spells we cast are countered. Anything we cast with CMC 1 is countered. And also creatures are just gonna start dying. So that's really tough. Now we're looking to the Elsha player, who fortuitously is able to go, they deployed a 1 ring on the previous cycle. And then, or I guess maybe it was this turn. Anyways, they go, at some point they get a 1 ring down, and then they get a Darcy down, and they get a Smothering Tithe down. But at this point, Aaron has a Null Rod in play as well as their commander, as well as Street Urchin, as well as all the other stacks pieces. And we're just starting to die, right? Like, we're just drowning at this point.
There's no other way out. You're just dead.
Getting smothered. And so, basically, we start swinging. This Darcy just starts punching Aaron in the air. And Aaron keeps losing his Mana Crypt flips and tapping his Ancient Tomb and dealing himself damage. So, they go from, like, 32 life or something to 17 or 19 in a very unreasonably short period of time, because like they're just getting hit by everything.
Sometimes the Mana Crypt just has it out for you. It just hates you in that particular game, and you just can't avoid it.
And that's just how it was for them. But I had identified by about the time that the Null Rod landed that this game was going to come down to a life totals game and damage. So we were able to keep pressuring. I swung in with Talion on Aaron. They were like, look, if you hit me with this Talion, I'm gonna kill your guy. And told him, I was like, look, you're gonna kill my guy anyways, right? Like, I have to make you spend some resources here. And so they nuked off my Talion off the field. They nuked the Stella off the field. For whatever reason, they didn't kill the Darcy. Like, they were just considering their board too valuable because they were artifact stacks pieces, so they didn't want to sack those.
Yeah.
And the creatures they had, they didn't want to sacrifice because they kept hitting the Elsha player with them to draw cards off the Toski they deployed.
Interesting.
But at this point, I have demonic tutored and passed the turn, and I came back around because the game was just going so slow. I was able to deploy Heuristic Study, which thankfully is a draw engine that does not get posed by Aaron's Street Urchin. And so and the other three players outside of Aaron are like, okay, we are each other's outs to this horrible mess we're in. So they're feeding my study, we're feeding the Smothering Tide, just like not even caring. Maybe Elsha will get unlocked and this will be a problem, but this will be a problem later. They transmute artifact into like Imposter Mech or something. Imposter Mech, the Wandering Archaic, Aaron deployed. Aaron tries to drop a Trinisphere, but I had delayed it. Like, it's just like this whole mess, right? Aaron's down to like 9 life, and the Elsha player's down to like 6. And finally, in like the two game critical turns, Aaron realizes that if he doesn't kill the Elsha player, I am going to remove the Null Rod just to like make there be another threat and try and get something else to happen.
Yeah, just prop someone else up.
So they realize in between that and the copied Wandering Archaic that they have to kill the Elsha player. So they kill the Elsha player. Elsha player dies. But their Trinisphere has been like locked into exile by this Drannith Magistrate. This is the sequencing I was talking about earlier. We'd like swords.
Yeah.
I swords into the Chalice, but the Archaic copied it. The Imp Mech Archaic copied it to swords the Aranus. And so then I was able to drop the Drannith. Yeah, so like my copy got countered, but we still exiled the Aranus. Then I dropped the Drannith and locked it behind it. And locked the 3-ball out and everything. Anyways, the Elsha player's now died because Aaron realizes he can't get through their Wandering Archaic and like all of the removal and everything. So kills them. Goes to me. I pass. The Stella player's done nothing for like the past 6 turns, so they pass because they're just so stacked out. They can't cast their commander. They've only got 5 lands in play, 4 lands in play, something. I don't know. It was awful for them. And Aaron tries to win with they sack their Chalice of the Void on 1 to something in order to get to a Goblin Welder in order to get some other artifact from their graveyard back. I don't remember what it was. Or Goblin Engineer. Sorry, not Welder. They wanted something from their graveyard. I forget what it was. I think it was some artifact creature or something. Anyways, they get it back, but they sack their Chalice, and then they go cast Natural Order, sack their Endurance that they had cast to block and kill a Birgi and just start beating people with. They sack their Endurance, and then the Stella player, I looked at the Stella player and I was like, we die if this resolves. And they're like, yeah, I know. I was like, can you do anything? And they're like, I have these. And like, so we share hands, and the Stella player has a Swan Song they can cast now. So they Swan Song, can't get cast. Chalice is gone, right?
Yeah.
Swan Song, pay for the Archaic, counter the spell, and then it goes around to me. I go at your end step, tap my 3 mana, Intuition targeting the Stella player, and my pile is a pile to reanimate New Bizet because Aaron is at like 6 life at this point. So I think him out. We're just on the burn plan. We're like we have to kill Aaron because if we don't, he wins on the next turn. We will just die. So we have to just end him in his life total slow enough, courtesy of the Elsha player. Like, salute, like, thank you so much for your Darcy and all its service. I was like, please give me this Necromancy so I can reanimate this Niv, and then between your spells and my spells, we will just try and deal enough damage to not die. And if you do this, like, yes, it'll unlock me first. I get that. So I gave him like a super good deal. I was like, I'll take 0 game actions on the next turn, let you untap and do whatever you want first, like before I even take any game actions next. But if we don't answer this, we lose. So, and they're like, okay. So I got the Necromancy, animate the Niv, cast like a tutor or something, draw a card, shoot Aaron, pass. The Stella player goes, Aaron only has 1 creature left. It's the natural order creature called Magus of the Order or something like that.
Oh, yep, I'm familiar with that one.
It's a 3/3. The Stella player goes, man, this feels so bad, but I know that we have to do it, or we have to kill him, or we just die. Okay. And they cast whatever the primary combo piece with Stella is. The one that grants a Wicked Roll token. I'm forgetting
that's a newer one.
I'm forgetting what that card is called. It's looking it up. Oh, Twisted Fealty. So they cast Twisted Fealty targeting Magus of the Moon. This is a sorcery that says gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it, gains haste. Put a Wicked Roll token on up to 1 target creature. If you control the roll, if you control another roll and that Wicked Roll is put in the graveyard, it deals with damage to each opponent. The enchanted creature gets +1/1. So they gain control of the Magus, taking away Aaron's only blocker. They put the roll token on it, making it a 4/4. And then they go to combat. I've drawn a card and shot Aaron. He goes to like 6 life, I think. So he was at 7 before. It goes to 6. Go to combat, hit him, set him to 2, and he's like, that's all I got. I'm entirely tapped out here because they had to pay for the archaic trigger so that they couldn't take my Niv. Otherwise, we would have it wouldn't have mattered. They could have blocked it, right? So they're tapped out. Aaron's at 2. They're like, that's all I can do. If they untap, we lose. Or it's going to come out of this mana crypt they have in play. And I was like, okay, fair point. And so I was able to just Slaughter Pact and then counter my own Slaughter Pact in order to get 2 more Niv triggers to deal the lethal 2 damage to kill Aaron. Aaron dies. My spells like fizzle or get countered or whatever. Go to my turn, untap, draw for turn, discard for hand size. Because I couldn't take any more game actions. I even discarded a land because I couldn't play another land because I couldn't take any more game actions on my turn.
Yeah, that was yeah.
And the Stella player's like, I appreciate that. You're a player of your word, and I was like, yep, I do try to be. I keep my deals. and so Stella player goes untap, upkeep, draw, hit my land drop, cast Stella, pass, and I was like, okay, cool. Untap, upkeep, draw, cast a spell, kill your Stella, Niv trigger, draw a card, deal you a damage, attack, deal you like 6 or 7 damage on combat, pass the turn, and then I just killed them with combat damage, just like counter your spell,
control
kill
the board
your guy,
at that point,
counter
yeah.
your spell, kill your guy.
Yeah.
And they got to like, I took them from like basically 40 life to like 20, and at that point they're like, yeah, I there's nothing I can do to win here, and I was like, yep, I think you're probably right. And so they conceded the match, and that was semis, and then top four
fast, apparently.
Yeah, it was rather quick. We actually ended up splitting. My opponents ended up conceding the match to me, which made me the victor of the event, and then we played for fun, and everyone. But unfortunately, as is wont to be, once you split a top 4 pod, everyone plays a little looser. So everyone was like, someone else will keep a responsible hand, and no one kept any interaction in top 4. Like, literally 0 players kept any, like there was no players kept any removal, kept any counter spells, kept any form of stacks or interaction at all. And so first seat went, interesting. First seat happened to be Karkashima based on standings. That was Swiss, and they went, okay, Krark, okay, cool. Tutor for Jessica's Will, Sakashima, win the game. And we were like, yep, that'll do it. So it was really funny, but it was a really great event. Everyone was super cool. Really good players. I was happy to be able to participate.
Yeah. Well, those games were insane. That semi, I'm still like trying to wrap my head around that semifinal game. Just like Aaron just going from like such a commanding position, just slowly losing his grip on everything he had built up is just insane.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate because there was exactly one game determining play in the match, right? And it was I have exiled Aranis. and I played my Dranith, and the Trinity Sphere is on its last counter. Aaron goes to their turn, upkeep trigger. In response to the suspend trigger to remove the last counter and attempt to cast the spell, which if that resolves, the 3-ball will be locked behind the Dranith because it cannot be cast, right? They go, okay, Legolas's quick reflexes, targeting, I don't know, they had like a mana dork or something on the battlefield. They had something that could like tap at instant speed to deal 3 damage to the Dranith and kill it. And they go, Legolas's quick reflexes. And I went, oh my gosh, we actually just lose when this Trinity Sphere resolves. Because we can't counter it. Like there's nothing we have left to do this. And once the 3-ball resolves, we just die. No one will be able to do anything meaningful at all. Period. Our spells will be countered. We will not be able to.
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Yeah, like it's over, right? There's a no rod. Like there's nothing will ever happen other than Aaron killing us, beating us to death with his 1/1s, 2/2s, and 3/4s. And then so they go LQR. And I was like, Ristic Study trigger, and the Elsha player's like, okay, Archaic trigger, and they're like, yeah, I'm not paying for anything. This is split second. Draw your card. So like, okay, cool, draw a card. And the Elsha player's like, okay, Archaic trigger, and they're like, sure, whatever, Archaic trigger's fine. And then it clicked to me that LQR, Legolas's quick reflexes, can target any creature and gives that creature hexproof. And so
that does.
And the Elsha player goes, okay, well, I have this copy of this spell. Like, I can't tap anything. What should I do with this? And I looked at them and I went, oh my gosh, target my Dranith Magistrate. Give it hexproof in response to them trying to kill my guy. And the Elsha player's like, oh, okay. Target the Dranith Magistrate. And Aaron, and then we resolve the Legolas's, or not or something. Anyways, Aaron's like, okay, is there any way to wait, can I like respond to my own thing? Like, it's split second but I control it. And I was like, no, it's split second, nobody can respond to it. Only triggers go through it and mana abilities. And he was like, oh, okay, so the LQR resolves on my Dranith from the Elsha player, giving it a hexproof till end of turn. The other one resolves, but the damage can't target the Dranith, so it fizzles. And then the 3-ball's locked out, Aranis stays locked out, and they can't do anything else on their turn that's meaningful, other than just like attack and kill the Elsha player and draw cards with Toski, in order to like try and find a win condition, right? And like remove the Sax piece that's hosing them that's not Dranith, because my life total was too high, and they had no way to get through. Like I had like a Dranith and maybe like one other blocker that they couldn't kill. But the reason it was game losing is because it was in their upkeep. They were fully untapped and they could have easily paid for the Archaic trigger. And if that spell had resolved, we would have handily lost the game. So it was just a very unfortunate oversight of like how triggers in the stack and triggered abilities, static abilities work. So that was unfortunate. But aside from that, yeah, it was really good, and the game was just insanely. It was just wild. Like there was just the power of Vexing Bauble blew me out of the water at how relevant it actually was.
Turns out free spells are really, really relevant when the entire format's interaction suite is mainly free spells.
Yeah, it was incredible at how strong that card was in both games where I played Aaron. They led with it in both games on like turn 1 or turn 2, and it just like shut down the table. It was crazy.
Damn. It's interesting because I was considering the card for a while, and I'm just like, it doesn't seem relevant. Now I'm changed. I'm a changed man.
Yeah, it was one of those cards where like, I'm not going to play it in my deck because I want to cast too many free spells, and it is completely symmetrical. But the card is ridiculously strong if your build allows you to play it.
Well, excellent. Well, congratulations on another dub, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, it was able to score. This was a gold event, and so since I'm hoping to like qualify for the top deck invitational, like the nationals tournament or whatever, that was another victory for me. So
yay! More points, more magic points. Well, that's awesome. Well, any other like last minute shout outs and stuff we gotta get taken care of?
No, just wanted to thank everyone who participated in the event again. It was a ton of fun. It was really good to see all of the regulars as well as all of like the new faces, and I hope to continue to see a lot of those people showing up to other tournaments in the future, as well as tournaments that allow proxies, so that we can see like the full potential that they offer when they're not limited by a budget.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm all done here. If you're all done here, my dude.
Yeah, I got nothing else.
All right. Well, want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to all of us talk about this sweet event. We'll catch you next time.